Welcome to the Geological Wayfaring the Future series. This is a special series of conversations that we are releasing in addition to our regular Tuesday podcasts. The reason being, the acupuncture and East Asian medical profession is facing a critical number of challenges as schools close. New federal guidelines on graduate education loans will dramatically change how much students can borrow. Beyond that is the issue of eroding insurance payments, and while acupuncture is increasingly integrating into the conventional system, acupuncturists are not. What are some ways we might move through the troubles of these times? That is what this series is for. We'll be listening to the perspectives and voices of practitioners who have been engaging the challenges. It's not always comfortable having conversations around difficult or contentious topics, but listening to understand, that's a good place to begin.
All the work that we've done in research and in policy and in having accreditation and having national standards has created more jobs, has created higher wages in certain circumstances, and the demand within the healthcare field is up, actually. And our number of published research is up too. What's down are the number of acupuncturists who can fulfill that need. The demand is growing, the supply is shrinking.
We are facing a difficult moment in our profession with school closures, changes in the amounts that students will be eligible to borrow, and even if they could, the amount of student debt makes it challenging to live a life under the shadow of that kind of ongoing financial obligation. What are schools doing in the face of these challenges, especially with the dropping levels of enrollment and increasing pressure to make acupuncture education both affordable and at the same time well-rounded? In this conversation with Seattle Institute of East Asian Medicine's Kathleen Lumiere, we discuss these issues along with the opportunities we have to create better mentorship as an ongoing process, build in business skills as part of the curriculum, and use unique research methods to better get at the essence of what needs to go into an acupuncture education. The landscape has been shifting for some time. Here is one school's view of the challenges and the opportunities of the moment. Kathleen Lumiere, welcome to Geological.
Thank you, Michael. Such a pleasure to be here with you.
I'm happy to have you here because it connects me back to my old hometown, Seattle, Washington, and my old home school. Well, we're here today because our profession, it's a little bit hard to name what's happening in our profession. I feel like in some ways we have set off on some kind of a journey. We're all on a boat going somewhere. It's hard to name the boat. It's hard to know the destination, but it seems like the waters are pretty choppy right now. And I think there's probably a lot of reasons for that. You know, just some of the numbers, these are not exact. These are rough. And correct me if I'm wrong, but like 10 years ago, there were roughly 62 schools. Today, I think there's something around 50-ish. We're seeing a trend in fewer schools. We're seeing closures. There are vast economic, political, sociological, financial strains on our profession at the moment. And really, I suspect not just our profession, maybe the educational world as a whole, and maybe our society as a whole. So while in particular I would like to talk with you today about what's happening in our world of acupuncture, I also want to include this larger environment, this larger ecosystem that we all live within, because maybe there's something to be said about that as well.
I'm glad that you've included the larger context because, yes, we are a small profession and we are not isolated within healthcare and within education as a whole. Absolutely.
So there's that. At the moment, there is a lot of discord in our profession. And, acupuncturists in some ways are I don't know why we're like this, but we seem to be good at disagreeing in often disagreeable ways.
I think we're iconoclastic by nature. We're adventuresome. We seek out a profession that people don't know about, and we think it sounds good. We're drawn to so many good things about it, but we're willing to buck authority, and we're willing to go against the mainstream to do it. So I think it draws people who think differently. So it is more work for us to hear each other, really hear each other, to take in what the other is saying, and to make something constructive together. But that's certainly the goal.
I think you're right about that. That makes sense. I think about at least the folks that I've known that have gone to nursing school, and they're all kind of similar. They know where they're headed. They've got a whole industry that will support them once they get out. They're part of a system. In fact, they're probably going to be part of a stable system. Us iconoclasts, some of us don't even want a job. It's I want to get out. I don't even want a job. I want to practice. I don't want a job. Other people would like a job. Some people say we should have more jobs. Sometimes there's finger pointing. How come there aren't more? How come it's so difficult? I'd love to get your sense. I don't know if you can put a name on it, but paint us a picture of where we are, the troubles that would be good for us to tangle with together.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe some opportunities that are in this that are difficult to see, but nonetheless nascent and present, quietly.
Thank you. I'm reminded of an Ann Landers column from the 1970s.
You just dated yourself.
So dated. Okay, so Ann Landers was somebody that people wrote into when there were newspapers. People would write into the newspaper and get advice. She was an advice columnist, and she had a long and storied career. Out of the decades that she was in the field, she said the article that she got the most engagement with, the most mail, was about which way to hang the toilet paper, toward the outward toward the toilet, or inward toward the wall. That was the one, and I think it was because. People were like, "Hey, I've got an opinion about this. I'm quite sure I know which way, and it's kind of low stakes, and it should be out or it should be in. This is just how it should be." The ecological problems that we are facing as citizens of Earth are so complicated. They're so big. They are beyond our ken, beyond our scope, beyond our ability even usually to opine. And I think that larger context also creates pressure about things that we might have strong opinions about, and makes people perhaps more opinionated, more fractious than they might be if they were just waiting for the entire picture to settle in. I like your metaphor of a journey, and we were talking before you pressed record about being on a boat together, crossing, and you alluded to this, some choppy seas. There are a lot of factors. There's weather, there's the water, there's the boat, the integrity of the ship itself, which I think is what we're talking about as a profession.
Yes, I think we are.
So I would like to get smaller first before we get bigger, and talk about what SIEAM, the Seattle Institute for East Asian Medicine, is doing to confront all these problems in a multifactorial way. So there are, and then I think that really specific application will allow for an understanding of our view of the whole and how these pieces fit together, the nautical ecology of it, if you will. So the problem of gainful employment for acupuncturists has been around for a long time. Mm-hmm. It partly it's that we are only partially compensated within the existing medical structure. All the work that we've done in research and in policy and in having accreditation and having national standards has created more jobs, has created higher wages in certain circumstances, and the demand within the healthcare field is up, actually. And our number of published research is up too. What's down are the number of acupuncturists who can fulfill that need. The demand is growing, the supply is shrinking.
The workforce is shrinking.
The workforce is shrinking. That is absolutely accurate. But in order for people to want to do this, to want to be trained in doing acupuncture, they have to make a good enough living doing it. It's a wonderful profession. It's every day, I don't know if you feel this way, but every day I get to work, I get to actually work with people in the clinic is a good day.
Totally. I've had people say, hey, it's Monday, that's too bad. I'm like, no, it's great.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's a joy and a privilege. But we have to be able to make a good living in order to be successful, in order to treat people, in order for people to come to us. So I've been trying to do this in different ways for a very long time. And the job at SIEAM, I'm the co-president of SIEAM, and I just started last August. Part of the attraction of the job was that I would finally get to work with people to help solve this particular problem. Mm. The way that we're doing that is having business education at every single level of every single year. So from the very beginning, like chiropractors do, or morticians.
Or the way you guys teach Chinese.
Thank you. And herbs, right? And our clinical training starts in the very beginning and continues all the way through. So the faculty as a whole have determined what are the hallmarks of successful clinical practice. We have those up in the clinic so people can recognize, like charts are actually really helpful for continuity and for reimbursement and for a bunch of things. And centering oneself, having a qigong or a meditative practice also helps engender a successful workplace. So there are a lot of these hallmarks that faculty have identified that are part of our core but evolving list for the first year students. And their work is to identify those in the people around them and to start to embody them. In the second year, students go out and follow successful practitioners and analyze what makes them successful. So it might be, later on today, we're going to talk about insurance billing. It might be insurance billing. It might be not insurance billing. It might be seeing multiple people an hour. It might be seeing one person per hour, but having a very intensive session and then being fairly compensated for that. So people will see the varieties of successful practice, analyze them, and think about how they want to practice. There are lots of right ways to do it. We've added to our formal practice management classes, very ably taught by Andy Russell, and that has continued. So those are introductions to things like Quicken, to the nuts and bolts of practice. Then there's a guest lecture series where people come in and talk about things in the third year. And then in the fourth year, we have a formal entrepreneurial training program recently developed in conjunction with Enterprise for Equity, which is a vocational school who specializes in training people to be successful in business who don't have any prior experience with business.
I love it. Wow.
Yeah, so happy about that. So happy about that. So
I
that's
am
going to be.
Wow.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, I've always thought of business. No, I've not always thought of business. I have often thought of business, the business side of my practice, as the practice of practice. Mm. Instead of thinking, I got to do these business things. It's like, I am practicing my practice. When I'm paying the bills, when I'm SEOing the website, when I'm ordering herbs, all those things you do, the marketing, business card design, practice of practice.
I like that, Michael, because it identifies your practice as something to care for.
It identifies the practice as something to care for, and beyond that, it does not separate the, air quotes here, business from air quotes practice. Just like we can't separate mind and body, you can't separate business and your medical practice.
Absolutely.
So I'm delighted to hear that you guys are not doing business as an add-on. It is integral to what you're doing.
Absolutely is. And that last piece is going to be open to alumni and licensed acupuncturists in the broader profession, because we want the entire profession to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
So that starts up next fall, and we're super excited about it. It's a sustainable business curriculum, so people, planet, and profits, so that the philosophy of business is probably much more resonant with your average acupuncturist than becoming a hedge fund manager.
And yet, at some basic level, at some foundational level, business is business is business is business. Just in terms of how they run, you bring money in, money goes out, you provide a service, how do you do that? There are some things that are similar, but the spirit you do it and the product you have on offer is very different.
Right. And we have this idea of qi. We have an ingrained understanding of the flow of energy into a system and out of a system. And you can't have qi just going one way and stopping. And people need fair compensation for their efforts out. That's part of the circular system.
Yes, nature works on exchange.
For
Sure.
Totally. So that's one part of 4 parts. The other part is mentorship. So another thing that graduates have identified for years, people out there, is how lonely private practice can be, how isolating, how they don't know what to do. SIEAM has a very strong community, but that's not universally true. So starting at the very first week, our students have mentors who are other students. That follows through the program, and then when they are advanced students, of course, they mentor in turn. When they get out into practice, then they will be mentored by established practitioners, and a number of people have come forward and volunteered to be those mentors very generously.
So I'm aware of the external mentorship program, because I've had the good fortune to work with some of your graduates over the years. But I did not realize that you also had an internal mentorship where students, more senior students, help to look after and bring along the newer students.
We do, yeah. We do. So that's especially useful in the first and second years. Then people become more mentors. In the third, in the final year, when people have their licenses, they're eligible to launch their practice in the clinic at SIEAM. So they have the mentorship of their faculty around them, as well as the infrastructure of an already existing school or clinic. So it's an incubator for practice.
How long have you guys been doing that?
Oh, it's been a while. That was before I got here. There's so many well-planned things about this school.
Yeah, that's again, it's been a long time since I was there.
It was probably after, but what a good idea, huh?
It was after. But look, I was there in the very early days. You have to run a race before you can complete it, as one of my patients likes to say. So it's wonderful to hear that the program has grown in that way. What are the other things?
Okay, so that's part of the clinical training, the incubator that I described. Our watchword is probably, that's a watch phrase, clinical training. It starts in the very first week. It's very hands-on. I believe that our profession may be AI-proof, because it's so high touch, especially the way we practice it and teach it and learn it here at SIEAM. It's quite embodied. As more learning, teaching, I certainly use AI and check it and make sure that it's accurate, but I'm grateful for that as a tool. But this medicine itself is transmitted and learned within a body. And that way of learning is honored and honed in on at every level of training here.
It's an extraordinary, I'm going to sound like an advertisement for your program, but it is something extraordinary about your program that from the very, very beginning, students are in the clinic. From day one, they're observing, they're seeing, they're touching, smelling, watching, listening, the whole bit. It's not theoretical. It's in your face. And then you go and you take the didactic material, you've got something to anchor it to. I know that I hear a lot of people in our profession, because I've got the good fortune to talk to people a lot. And one of the major frustrations a lot of folks have is they get out of school and it's like, well, I'm not exactly sure how to do this. I don't really know how to do clinic yet. And I need some mentorship, or I need a residency, or I need something extra. And I think the program that you have, look, all of us get out at the end and it's like, okay, I hope I've got enough to make a go of it. But I think there really is something to that embodied, as you call it, that it does something to you as a student.
It does. It does. And as you said, it becomes, you have something to anchor it to. It becomes real right away.
Mm-hmm.
When I went to school, I had a much more traditional initial TCM training. Lots of training after that, but the initial training was so amorphous. It was like filling in a map in the dark, like, oh, that and that and that and that and that and that. It was so mysterious. And then later I thought, oh my gosh, liver qi stagnation is a real thing.
Mm.
It's an actual thing. This is real. But the students that I encounter here already have felt and seen that. So that's a nice thing. Also, students, instead of observing other students, the first people they observe are folks who have been in practice for at least 10 years, people who are very accomplished at what they do. The last part is the curriculum changes. So this is not isolated to SIEAM at all. Lots of schools are trimming their sails. They are figuring out what is essential about the training, so that the cost to people is much less than it would be. So what we've done is a few things. We've worked with the faculty to figure out what our interdisciplinary core is. So instead of having siloed gynecology, Western gynecology, Eastern gynecology, we have gynecology as a whole. And thankfully, we have faculty who are fluent in both of these vantage points and can talk translationally about what this means from one form of the medicine to another. Alan Saya already did this, but we talk about the pharmacology of herbs. We talk about drug and herb interactions within the context of integrated endocrinology classes. So this is more of a tightening of the program and less of a cutting. When we started out with this conversation, the question was not how can we strip it. It was how can we create the strongest program that we possibly can. Like, what will make this better?
So in some ways, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're taking the constraints and the challenges of our times, which are very real. You're not cutting things away. Oh, well, we're going to have to throw that overboard. Too bad, but we got to keep the ship afloat. Instead, you're making it more concise, more integrated, tighter. You're taking what you already have, but almost condensing it.
A bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's well summarized. And this is how people actually practice too. So when we're out there and somebody comes in and has a condition that we haven't heard of before, we look it up. We figure out what the Western diagnosis is, what the mechanisms of action are. We look at it from our clinical signs and symptoms, and we put together a whole piece that integrates biomedicine and East Asian medicine primarily. So that's how we want to teach as well.
So biomedicine is not a separate thing from the Asian medicine. It's like you're speaking bilingually.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
We have a new bodywork program, the first of its kind in the country. So it's a certificate in Asian medical bodywork. It gives people without any training in any of the Eastern medical traditions a grounding in the body, in Tui Na primarily, but shiatsu as well, and other massage practices so that they can become licensed massage therapists at the end of the year. If they want to go on and study more in the medicine, they can. They don't have to repeat the classes they took in the bodywork program. And they can make a pretty good living while going to school. So because of the tightening of that curriculum, it gives more time for people to work, so they don't have to take out as much in loans.
And they can take the work that they're doing, and that also becomes part of the grist for the mill of what they're learning.
Precisely. Yes, exactly.
You get them some training, you get them up and working. And look, if that's all they want to do and they're happy with it, no harm, no foul, great.
Exactly.
They've got a good livelihood. If they want to take it further, okay, you can layer some more onto it, maybe become an acupuncturist.
Yes. We've opened up another route into the pipeline, which is a certificate in Chinese medical translation. So we're going to be able to use that beautiful library and open it up to people who are interested in Chinese medical scholarship, learning how to translate, and perhaps in that way get interested in the medicine as well. That certificate is in process.
What kind of people do you suspect would come in for that? Are these more academic types, or people interested in language or culture, sinologists? Who's going to come do that? I mean, it sounds fascinating.
So it could be somebody who went to a different school and wants to delve into the classic. Could be people from within our program who want more training in medical translation. I didn't take medical Chinese, so I'm going to do it. I think it sounds wonderful. Do you know who Paul Unshold is?
Of course. Paul Unshold, the translator dude.
Yeah, the translator dude.
The translator dude, yeah.
The translator dude. He was not a medical practitioner.
He's still not.
Okay. He's still not after all this time. But he did an amazing job of translating our classics, sensitively and accurately, and is a model for looking at the medicine from that kind of external vantage point. And we have materials now that need to be shared, need to be translated, need to be out there in the world. So this is a way of doing that.
Sounds like you guys are busy.
Oh my gosh. It's been a wild fire horse of a year for sure.
Yes, it has.
Yeah.
How is this current, just to shift gears a little bit, maybe pull it back outward, as we were talking about, the current issues with loans and the current issues with school closure. And I'll go so far as to say, look, if I was a young person considering a career in Chinese medicine, I'd probably be rethinking that, or at least doing a bunch of research, because is that school even going to be there by the time I get out? It's a little nerve-wracking when we look at it. How has SIEAM been affected by this, if you have been? And if you have been, what are you doing to address it?
Right. We have not been affected. Our numbers have not been affected by it because because of the strength of the program. It will be affected, certainly, by the disappearance of the Grad Plus loans in July. We have come up with a list of financial resources for our students, other ways of getting grants or loans, through trimming the curriculum so people can work and take out fewer loans. So we think that we are pretty well set up to weather this, what will become a crisis in the healthcare profession for the whole country, because it wasn't, of course, just acupuncture affected by this. It was aspects of nursing, it was audiology, it was OTs. All of those training pipelines are going to get squeezed because of this piece of legislation, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. It's not just us, but we do have to get through this period. So we have different strategies for doing that. SIEAM is in good shape right now. It has taken a lot of fiscal discipline, which will continue. But I think we will weather this particular storm at sea. What I'm most concerned about, though, is the profession as a whole.
Correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding of SIEAM, I'm probably going to sound like a fanboy, but I am a little bit, so I'll just admit it. Your program has always been purposefully small. You've never really tried to grow it that big. I would imagine that puts you in a different stead at this moment in terms of finances and, just the lopsidedness that some schools get hit with.
We have not ever had a boom and bust economy because it's always been small, and we're lean administratively. A lot of schools contend with top-heavy administration. All of us do a lot of things. We all teach. We all practice clinically. A lot of us do research. We wear a lot of different hats, and that's faculty as well. It's very, people have the idea like, oh, a problem has come across my desk. I should figure it out here. And there's an openness to doing that. So it's a lovely place to be. And the smallness enables that. A large organization does have to become more specialized in job roles and descriptions. So SIEAM's size enables its flexibility, its openness, its agility. It's a real benefit. Also, the fiscal discipline that I was talking about. Things are immediately apparent. Like we can fine tune our expenses quickly, and have to. It's like trimming sales.
It's like running a household.
It's running a household, big one, big household, small school. Yeah.
If you're running a city, your finances are different than when you're running a household.
For sure.
And you have to be a little tighter with a household usually.
Yes. So we know that we can't rely on things like grants. We don't have an endowment. No, I don't know if any schools of our type do. But that's how higher education usually weathers storms, is through investment, through endowment. We don't have that, so we have to be very responsive to the needs of the moment and very careful about how we spend money.
So again, speaking to that larger context, because you've been paying attention to it. You got a school, you want to keep it going. You're sort of reading the landscape, you're reading the water, what's out there. What do you suspect are our biggest challenges in the next year or two?
So one of the challenges is going to be maintaining our infrastructure. The boat that we're on, like the spars and the beams of it, are things like accreditation, are things like national licensure. We would do well to keep those things. So we still have a boat to weather the storm, and so we don't have to build a new mast when we're in the middle of a sea voyage. We can see ways that these big infrastructure, they're not that big. They're medium sized. They're normal for a profession to have just a couple of these, and they are very responsive to their constituents. So this is the time, especially. I should back up. Right now, it's the time to support ACOM and NICBALM, which used to be NCCAOM, because they are coming up for review by NCCI, which is the review agency that advises the Department of Education. So if we want to hold on to our infrastructure and remake it the way we want it to serve us better, we need to keep it. So this is a time to support ACOM. It's a time to support our national testing standards. After that review, which is going to be in the next few months, it'll be time to remodel, to make sure that things are different and better. So ACOM has sent out, right now, they've sent out a survey for comment, and this would be great to do, to contact ACOM and say, this is how you need to change. This is what could be better. This would be great. So, and they will be very responsive. The same thing for NICBALM, the national testing, which used to be NCCAOM. What would not be helpful is to go to the DOA and the Department of Education or NCCI and say, our infrastructure is no good, scrap it. That would not serve the profession. So that, I think, is one of the big things to think about and proceed carefully in a strategic way. So the strategy is make inside changes, protect the profession, then make more changes. If alternate paths to licensure come up, those would be helpful if the national accreditation wasn't serving a particular population, and there might be a use case for that. I'm not saying that there wouldn't be. That could be helpful, but we don't want to burn the ship down while we're on it, because then we don't have a good boat, and the little life rafts are probably not going to be adequate.
So let me just reflect this back for a moment to make sure that I'm understanding. I'm by and large a practitioner, and I've not had my nose in this stuff until lately. And the only reason I put my nose into it is because, wow, there's a lot of conversation going on and a lot of discord and a lot of worry and a lot of concern. So, okay, here I am for a few conversations. I did not realize that ACOM and NCBOM, they in turn are also regulated, and they have to go through their particular reviews. And we are, just to add a little more fuel to the fire, we're in a process right now, or they're in a process, I guess we're in a process because we're connected to them, of being reviewed. And so, look, you may not agree with everything that's going on. You may not even like what's going on, but they are the game that we have in town. Let's make sure we keep that game, and then we can further decide how we want to remodel this thing.
That's right. That's right. And they are run largely by acupuncturists. There isn't a they are us. We are all us here, pretty much in this room right now. We don't want to cede our regulatory tasks or decisions to somebody who doesn't understand our profession.
It's a sticky wicket we're in, huh?
It's a bit of a sticky wicket. There's such an upside, though, to all of this energy, which is that I think in these conversations, the ones that you're convening, the ones that White Pine Circle has initiated, the ones that ACOM and NCBOM are doing too, there becomes a better shared understanding of what the needs are and how to accomplish that. Some of my research friends and associates and I were talking about the problems in our profession and how to meet them. We've been talking about this for years, like talk about it feels like every Friday. We were talking in Salt Lake City at the academic consortium about, well, what should we do? What's needed? What does the profession need? And we think that one of the things that would be most helpful is if we gathered, if we used the research tools that we have to get the expert, well-considered opinions of many people in the field, put those together and come up with a core curriculum idea for acupuncture. So this would enable us to say to nurse practitioners or whoever wants to use acupuncture, saying, now this is the irreducible core of what it means to practice acupuncture. This is it. We have talked about it. We have agreed upon it. Our process is transparent and good. This is it. So we came up with this idea based on the wisdom of crowds approach to decision making, which is a scientific process of getting disparate points of view to make a decision that almost always outperforms single experts. So like you kind of triangulate in on an idea, and it turns out to be complex, it's representative, and it's accurate. So we're using that methodology, which I've used in community garden organizing, and it turned out better than I could possibly have dreamed of. We had 100 people work on a design for a community garden, and the result was that they all liked it. Like everybody, they all liked it. I couldn't believe it.
It's a little bit unusual.
Right? Yeah. It was kind of a proof of concept for this wisdom of crowds approach. So that and Adelphi, which is a Adelphi study typically builds consensus by gathering information, reflecting it out, gathering, reflecting. So We're doing that in a couple stages too. And the description of that study will be published in the Journal of Integrative and Complementary Medicine probably in a few weeks. It's the Society for Acupuncture Research Turning Points article. So that's in process. Two, to gather the passion, to gather the good ideas, to gather like the incredible stuff that Poca Tech has done in Portland, and to gather the people at White Pine Circle, to gather their creative thoughts and their creative ideas, and see what is that core of what it means to become an acupuncturist. And then other schools, seems good. We're not going to mess with our curriculum, but a lot of schools are changing things very much in response to what's going on right now.
Yeah, they have to respond or they're gone. So there's that.
There is that.
How do we make things better?
Well,
so that we can stay. Now, this sourcing the wisdom of crowds, it seems like it rhymes a bit with some things I've had other guests on this series. They talk about, oh God, it's slipping my mind, but it's like, surveys of stakeholders in the workplace. Like what do we need to provide to people working in hospitals? Like what do hospitals need of acupuncturists to be able to work there? What do employers of acupuncturists need to have from recent graduates? How do the schools know what to provide in terms of training based on the needs of the industry? And it sounds like you're also doing this work and you're using this advanced model of sourcing what is it that is needed, not just of an industry, but of the greater system itself.
That's exactly right, Michael. And I would love to know who those people are because I want to talk to them.
Great. I suspect they would actually love to talk to you.
It would be great. Yes. No doubt we will be talking, yes.
In part, this is what I am hoping to do with these conversations, is have us be able to get a sense of what people that we might not agree with or may disagree with us, a sense of what they're up to and the motivation behind it, and how we might not be working against each other. We might be working with each other. We just don't know quite how to do it yet.
So this study gives us a way to do that. So people who want to start a school will know, okay, what is the irreducible core? And then what would I put on top of it? What credentials might we stack to make it a particular kind of acupuncture or develop it out in a specific way? It would also provide training for allied healthcare professionals, possibly, to do acupuncture and do it right.
I love that idea. I know a lot of people would disagree. Like, acupuncture belongs to us, other people keep your dang paws off of it. But look, acupuncture is going to find its way into wherever it can because it's useful. And that's just the way these things work. So why not help people, nurse practitioners, chiropractors, PTs, whatever, who's ever using needles next, why not help them be as good as they can be with it?
100%.
And so you're looking at what is a core, in a sense, a core curriculum, or a core, maybe a better way to say it, a core set of competencies that we need.
That's a really good way to say it. And then people could meet those competencies in different and creative ways.
One of the things that was in this proposal from ACOM is looking at a bachelor's degree because it meets the federal guidelines for loans. I think they had something in there about that.
So people have been asking about that for a long time, and ACOM said, okay, well, what would that look like? And they're still taking comment about it, still mulling it over.
And the results of this wisdom of crowds could help to inform that.
It could. Like, what would be a very, very entry-level practice of acupuncture at a bachelor's or associate's level. Yeah. I would hope that we would retain training that would enable people to be peers at hospitals, that we would retain our doctoral level training as well, just because there's so much to know. There's so much to know.
For sure. The thing that excites me about hearing this idea of the wisdom of crowds, the core of what acupuncture is you can get people started with a core of acupuncture. And then if you want to take it deeper into something, layer another layer of study on top of it. It doesn't mean you can't go get a doctorate, but if you've got the core, and maybe you've worked with the core for a few years, so you know something about acupuncture, wow, going and get a higher level of training, a higher degree, more credentialing, more skills, well, now you're bringing 5 years of experience to it. That makes you a very different kind of postgraduate student.
Yes, and a very valuable member of a cohort, of a training cohort.
Mm-hmm.
I could not agree more.
Yeah, look, I came along before there were doctoral degrees. I feel like such a fossil. And I remember there was a lot of excitement in the ideas of, oh, doctoral degrees and we can be doctors and, this is going to be great. And then this idea became that, well, this is the entry level to being able to do this work. And I remember thinking to myself, well, man, that's a big step to get started. And what happens to the people that don't have the academic rigor? What happens to the people that don't have the funding? What happens to the people that don't have the loans? What happens to people that they just want to get in and get started and see where it goes? If we had a lower, I hate using the word level, lower level, if we were clear on a very competent entry level, it seems to me we would see a much more diverse group of people coming to learn acupuncture than we do right now. Because it puts it within reach of so many more people.
Yes. And we want that. So with the caps on lending, which are not entirely bad, I think that people have to be able to make enough money to pay back their loans, right?
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
It's not a bad idea. The cap is way too low. It's not a realistic cap, but it's not a bad idea. And there already was a cap, which was the cost of education. So, like in Washington State, it's $92,000 a year. But $92,000 a year multiplied by 4 years is a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
Right. So
That's a lot of money with interest.
We really don't want that for people, not at all. That said, schools cannot say, don't borrow money. We're nobody's parents. We can't legally say that. People make their decisions themselves about how much money to lend. What we can do is create a realistic financial picture of how much people can be expected to make. And I know people have been trying to do this for a really long time. And then do things in training, especially around business, so that number is larger and sustainable.
I think the business piece is great. You're preaching to the choir here. I have heard other people say that some of the institutions that they've been at, the advice that they got on loans was not, how should I phrase this, more helpful to the school than it was to them. And so I think there's a very real, and this is just part of being an economic, creature, homo economus, right? We all have our own self-interest. Maybe the schools aren't always in the best position to say, hey, student, here's what's good for you from an economic point of view. And, it might not be a bad idea to have someone that you can consult with to say, here's what my school is saying to me. Does this make sense?
Yeah,
a lot of people don't have financial literacy when they first engage in, a college endeavor.
That is such an excellent point. Do you know of anybody who offers that service or who is working toward that?
Off the top of my head, no, but I've had some guests on the show, and there are some entities that help students with thinking about student loans. I can't remember it off the top of my head.
That's okay. I'll dig around.
Yeah, that would be great. And I think it, again, just from someone on the outside, I'm not immune to my own self-interest. I don't think anybody or any organization is immune to our own self-interest. It's part of being a living entity, right? We got some wei qi and some ing qi, and we want to keep it together. Self-interest is part of how all that works. Given that is probably true for most of us, how can we counterbalance that with another influence so that we hear one thing in one place, let's take that to another, let's double check that, fact check, I think is the thing people like to say these days, but just, another sounding board, another point of view. Is this actually a good idea from an economic point of view for someone like me who might make, X amount of money 5 years after school?
I love that idea of independent financial counseling at the onset.
Yes, independent financial counseling.
Yeah, it would have to be somebody who knew what was possible also in the profession. The way that our income is reported isn't realistic.
Why not?
Well, I think people it takes a long time to grow a practice usually. If you don't have an incubator, it takes a long time. So those first few years...
Unless you live in St. Louis, Missouri. We would love to have practitioners come here. You can get up to speed really quick. You can pay back your loans. You can make a good livelihood. Cost of living is low. There are places you can get a practice up and going quickly. No insurance either. Cash business.
Right. So Nashville, Mississippi, Tennessee. There are a lot of underserved places that are hungry for acupuncturists.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. So there is that as well. That's another piece of the puzzle. Mm-hmm. Look, I miss the Seattle landscape every day of my life. Mm. But I'm also grateful for where I'm at, the work that I get to do. So, life has plenty of trade-offs. Anyway, I'm sorry, I digress. But that financial literacy piece, if you don't have it, schools aren't necessarily trustworthy with it. I'm not saying that's because they're corrupt. I'm just saying because we all have our own.
No, I really like that idea.
Horse in the race.
I've been worried about graduates getting out with too much debt for a long time.
I've got a friend who likes to say it's very difficult to tell the difference between things falling apart and things falling together. So as a way of maybe winding this down, I'd like to get your perspective. In the midst of things apparently falling apart, what are some of the pieces that might be falling together? Sometimes a phoenix has to burn down before it rises up, reconstant.
Well, the thing I think that is falling together the strongest at the moment is gainful employment. That this is the problem that we must solve. And before this particular inflection point, people said to me, like, oh, yeah, we should do that. But it was like we should do it in the future, not like we absolutely have to do this. But now we absolutely have to do it. So that's good. It's the cohesion between different entities, like the Washington schools that are all ACOM accredited, and the Washington State Acupuncture Association, WIAMA, we've been talking about how can we work together to make sure that licensure is protected. We're offering discounts to WIAMA members for our business class, substantial discounts, so that everybody in the state can get the training to become better business people. We are sharing resources across schools about trimming curriculum. We're working together. And I'm very interested in talking with a broad swath and bringing together, again, through the wisdom of crowds, these different perspectives, different from mine, on how we create this kind of basic set of competencies that is a tangible product that then people can take and use however they see fit. To have that kind of cohesion or agreement would really only be possible in a moment of crisis. I'm
reminded a little earlier in the conversation, you talking about looking at real financial constraints, ways of tightening up your program. You condense and consolidate. It's like the metal phase where things become more coalesced and condensed and maybe even more precious, right? Precious metals. And yeah, so I'm hearing as part of that coming together, it is this almost alchemical opportunity to become something else and more refined at that.
Mm-hmm. Better, stronger, yeah.
One last thing before I let you go. You mentioned the gainful employment piece. Mm-hmm. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
So that's a thread going all the way through. Can somebody graduate from acupuncture education and make enough money to pay back their loans and to live a good life. That's how I'm thinking of gainful employment. The federal government defines gainful employment in a different way. So I don't know if you've had other guests who have gone through the fine print of how this is defined.
Yes, there's the AHEAD metric.
The AHEAD metric. So the AHEAD metric defines it by being able to make a certain percentage more than someone who graduated with a bachelor's degree with a graduate degree. But it's not a bachelor's degree in our field, it's a bachelor's degree overall. So it's a bachelor's degree of tech workers and philosophers and, everybody all together, a bachelor's degree. So it's not, it's an odd comparison.
My understanding of the AHEAD metric, and correct me if I'm wrong, this stuff is complicated, is that people had to be making a certain level of money 4 years out of practice that basically enabled them to be able to service a loan.
So that certainly, and to be able to make a certain amount of money in all of those 4 years. So not just by the fourth year, but all of those 4 years. There's a lot of fine print there. The bigger piece is that any profession that is not immediately financially remunerative, lucrative, is going to fail this metric, is going to fail this test. So that does include all the philosophers and poets. It does include a wide range of healthcare workers. People who don't have money as a primary value will not be able to get loans to finance their training in it.
Which brings us back to that larger systemic thing that we were talking about earlier. This is not just us. The whole of our society is undergoing this shift. Many allied professionals with us are undergoing a shift.
It's fascinating, isn't it? One of the richest societies in the history of the world. And these are the sacrifices that people are being called on to make.
Well, that is fodder for another conversation, and probably a worthwhile conversation at that. But yes. Kathleen, is there anything else that you would like to share before we say goodbye for this moment?
Thank you, Michael, for this talk. I've really enjoyed talking with you, and knowing that there are more conversations to come with you and with others in the field is it's just energizing. So I have a couple watch this space notices. One of them is about the Turning Points article that's going to be coming out soon from the Society for Acupuncture Research in the Journal of Integrative and Complementary Medicine. So that will be about, I think it's called The Pipeline and the Paradox. It's about acupuncture training. And this is the Wisdom of Crowds proposal. So if you read that, then you'll have an idea of what it is that we're trying to do and hopefully can be part of that. And then the other thing is stay in touch. I love talking with people in this field. We are iconoclastic, but we are also adventuresome and curious and compassionate, and I could not ask to be on a boat with more interesting people.
Well, it's that old thing about be careful what you ask for, you might get it.
Yeah, that's okay. It's still a good boat.
I agree. And with our differences, there's always something to learn. So there's that. Thank you so much for your time today. This has been delightful. And look, the world is changing quick. We may have another conversation in the near future. We'll see.
Okay. Take care, Michael. Thank you.
I was heartened to hear that SIEAM is beginning to take seriously the importance of integrating the practice of business into the practice of medicine, especially as most graduates will not be walking out into a job. They will be walking out into building a practice for themselves and streamlining, not by cutting the material taught, but by integrating Eastern and Western methods where that makes sense. It seems like a way to help students better understand the clinical reality they will face once they get out into their clinical work. And here's a piece. remembering that the accreditation and testing infrastructure is key to licensure portability and being able to practice across state lines, that is worth noting because it is important to so many of us. And at the moment, those foundational entities are going through their own review and accreditation process. Now, in the midst of all the other changes afoot, this moment would not be a good time for us to lose those structures that allow for us being able to practice pretty much anywhere that we'd like in the United States. And finally, using the wisdom of crowds method to get at what the essentials of an acupuncture education that we could all agree on. That sounds like a worthwhile project, especially as more and more conventional medicine practitioners want to add the power of acupuncture to their practices.